Ever since the cancellation of Late Night with Stephen Colbert by CBS and how CBS labeled this as a strict financial decision, we have a lot of differing opinions out there. On one end, a lot of people are blaming Trump for the reason as to why CBS called it quits with Stephen Colbert. Others out there are actually setting up other examples that led to the cancellation of this actual show, such as the ratings, such as specific, comments that Stephen made before in the past, or specific jokes that may have been overly offensive to a lot of other personalities out there. But what's interesting here has a lot more to do with the fact that people over time just grew very uninterested in Stephen Colbert's, constant anti-Trump commentary on his program. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future updates. You can also follow me at Mike01. I thank you also very much for the great and kind support. Now, a lot of Hollywood celebrities, actors, actresses, directors, whatever have you, are beginning to come forward voicing their opinions about Colbert's cancellation. However, when you're looking to other political commentators like Bill Maher, he's beginning to actually chime in on this entire situation and really putting Colbert in his place and ultimately humiliating him. So let's jump into this. Now, one thing about Bill Maher is that I think that we could all agree here that he really did change his tune ever since Trump actually got elected and got, of course, into office and really had, a big moment on November the 5th. We all saw how Bill Maher changed a lot of his tune with various moments across the board, whether it was, throughout his stand-up comedy or on his show with Real Time. But what's interesting here has a lot more to do with the fact of how he's already calling out Stephen Colbert. Now, with CBS making a swift move by canceling the Late Night with Stephen Colbert show, already his own fans and multiple celebrities are upset about all of this. However, many critics of Colbert are welcoming the cancellation in open arms, now including Bill Maher, who recently called out Stephen Colbert over his cancellation. Maher delivered the following: "Look, I want to be clear with my audience. I don't wish failure upon anyone, but Stephen had it coming. He had to see this coming. When you begin to fall into partisan territory and all you do is spew out propaganda, as instructed by your CBS producers, it's no wonder why they decided to cancel this thing." Now look, I do find it interesting that this happened days after their settlement with Trump. There's no question about that. Yeah, it's interesting for sure, but we just don't have enough proof yet to say this was the cause. Look, many Americans grew tired of Stephen Colbert's shenanigans and turning every single damn moment and turning every damn thing into a Trump rant or a Trump political talking point. He was a one-trick pony and people got tired of it. I have been a comedian for a very long time, I get it, but when you are doing political humor, it has to be good-natured. When you begin to get nasty and you make it personal and you project your own issues on live television, people see through it all, and people on both the left and the right, shockingly I know, are just flat out tired of it all. They just are. So I think a level-headed person would at least go out with some redemption to change his ways before his show goes off the air next year. Even if it's not authentic, at least present yourself as a normal late-night show host, Stephen. Maybe the CBS producers will wake the hell up, and ABC producers should too, by the way, with Jimmy Kimmel. Do I have my issues with Trump? Sure I do. I'm very open about that. Do I have issues with his politics in certain areas that I don't agree with? Absolutely. But to see Colbert doubling down on things like DEI and illegal immigration and all this nonsense, it makes Americans sick. It actually offends them, and they don't want to be lectured in their own homes. This is why people are heading to other forms of media to get their news from different commentators, and it's working. Legacy media, as they like to call it, is becoming a thing of the past for this very reason. So this is all on you, Colbert. This is all you're doing, but not just you. Blame CBS. Blame your producers and the writers behind your show, and yet they still openly attack Trump in extreme ways even after his show was canceled by CBS. I just don't understand some of these people and these studios that just don't want to change their ways. Now guys, let me just stop here for one moment about Bill Maher. Now look, I have been a critic of Bill Maher in the past, but you know what, when you look at him, in isolation as well, he's becoming more and more civil over time, and he has been. But what's interesting about this is that Bill Maher is making very good points here, is that Stephen Colbert really was nothing more than a Trump or an anti-Trump commentator disguised as a late-night show host, right? That's all it ever was. Let's be very real about this. And that's all Jimmy Kimmel, in his show is as well. You know, Jimmy Kimmel Live is the same exact thing. Seth Meyers, same exact thing. Jimmy Fallon, and I pointed this out twice already today, but he's the least political late-night show host in comparison to all the other three main talking heads. But what's interesting here about Bill Maher is that he's also pointing out the fact that Stephen Colbert, he had to have seen this coming. He just had to, right? Well, you would think, right? But now he's already still openly attacking Trump even after learning that his show is no more. It's going to go off the air, this May. May of 2026, I should say. And we all know that, of course, when you look at Stephen Colbert, just like Bill Maher pointed out, he doesn't really believe that he's going to change his ways. And you know what? I really don't believe he's going to change his tune either. I don't think Bill Maher, or should I say Stephen Colbert, is going to change things at all, as Bill Maher pointed out. But continuing on here, this is where it gets even more interesting, is that he goes on to elaborate further. I don't expect Stephen to change during the last course of his program until next year. In fact, I think he's going to try to go out with a bang in his own way, in his own right, by doubling down on anti-Trump talking points that people are just sick and tired of it all. Get a freaking clue, man. Get a damn clue already, because people aren't just numbers or part of ratings. People are people, actual individuals watching your partisan takes on television, and people are over it. And you know what? I mean, it's true. I mean, the ratings haven't been looking all that great when it comes to Stephen Colbert on CBS. You could argue about that, that it was at least, above all the others or something around those lines. But in reality, people, in the general sense, people are just tired of the same exact regurgitated talking points by a lot of these late night show hosts, when reality, of course, these late night shows should really just be about, actual comedy, right? Actual comedy, not strict personal political humor talking points that get very nasty, as we have seen this time and time again with Kimmel, with Colbert, even many times with Seth Meyers. Fallon, and I pointed this out, I'm not a fan of Fallon, but at least Fallon tries to stick with the actual comedy, right? But I'm not a fan of his comedy by any means, but at least he tries to stick with it like that. But overall, this is where it gets even more interesting, is that we already know that Bill Maher calling out Stephen Colbert is a major stake, right? It's a major final nail in the coffin over at CBS. It really makes them look bad. It's actually exposing them even more so now, because now you have people like Bill Maher calling him out for his overall problems, calling him out for doubling down on all of the nonsense, such as DEI should be a thing in movies and television and in the entertainment industry. Stephen Colbert backs and supports that. Bill Maher does not. And that's what I like about Bill Maher. At least he sides with Trump on that respect, to get rid of the overall woke ideology. But overall, I would like to hear what everyone has to say about the whole Stephen Colbert situation and CBS and what they did there. So yeah, I would like to hear what you all have to say about Maher's take on Stephen Colbert, everything else going on over at CBS and CBS with their producers and their ultimate decision of what they did with the show, whether or not it was related to Trump. Let me know what you guys have to say about that below. And if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel, and I will catch you guys later.